And here we go. Hey there, I'm Jim Munchback, and this is it's 1 April. That's April Fool's Day, year of our Lord 2025. And we're going to do lesson week number 11. This week is all about tax allocation, or another way to think about it is tax advantaged investing. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to and let me see if I can play a little music. So I've got a lot of cool things here. Let me get my setup correct. So this is what we're going to go over in this lesson. It's not the right time to start, so I'm just getting set up at the moment. And pretty good list. We'll go through these. Stop it. I don't know about you. Leave a comment below if you like the music. I've got lots of music. You can see I've got way too many toys, and you can see I like to play with my toys, but yeah, I've got this new little gizmo here, and it's just for music. So I can push a button. That's called rope. I don't know, it's kind of nice. So again, I'm playing. We're little girls. If you're with us getting ready for this lecture in personal finance, this is harp, so I'm previewing harp. Do you like that? Kind of like that. Can you hear it? Can you hear the volume? If you're in the Zoom room, leave a chat. Let me know. If you're listening on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, please leave a comment below and just let me know what you think about music. So this is harp. This is harp. Oh, I stopped it. Annoying, but I have it. And here's my favorite go-to. It's called, or I call it, corporate. So that's the basic one. So anyway, that's it. That's the studio. That's what we're doing today. Back to still a little early, but just so you know, this video is being posted to our UH playlist. If you want to check it out, it's not going to be in the playlist until after we finish the live stream, because we are streaming live right now. And you'll see a link if you go to the video on YouTube. You'll see a link to this post. This is all the information. And it's got a lot of information you're going to need through the course if you go UH Final Four. So this is what you're going to work on in your financial plan as well. You're going to do a little bit of tax allocation or tax advantaged investing. I think you're going to find this to be hopefully very helpful. It's going to piggyback on what we talked about last week when we talked about the investment strategies. So this is today's lesson: tax allocation, tax advantaged investing. If you're a financial planner or an investment manager, you think of it typically as tax allocation. But basically what we're talking about is types of accounts where you're going to put your money. What type of account, not what you're going to invest in. That's a different conversation. This week it's all about types of accounts. Now, I don't see any questions at the moment, so I'm going to turn off the music, and I think I'm going to go here and start. Let me get rid of that. So if you look at the ticker below, you'll see we've got kind of all the things that we're going to include. So tax allocation strategies. What did I just do? There we go. So I'm just going to run through these pretty quick. We've got tax advantaged investing. I'm looking at my screen over there to make sure I have the right talking points. But last week I introduced you to, maybe it was a week before and last week hopefully, but I talked about the perfect investment. We talked about the 401k and why that is such a special type of account. And so I want you to be aware of that. You're going to do a little homework this week to refresh yourself about the 401k, what it is, how it works, what are the rules, boundaries, and limitations. We're also going to spend a few minutes and talk about the Roth IRA, which is the only tax-free investment I know of. And today is April 1st, so if you're thinking about contributing to your Roth IRA, this is just a little extra free tidbit if you're in the course. You have to contribute. You have until my birthday, which is April 15th, to contribute for last year. So if you want to make a contribution for tax year 2024, you can do that all the way up until April 15th. After that, you lose the opportunity. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about tax penalties, but mostly you're going to do some work this week, some reading, some research, and you're just going to learn about the tax penalties that come with these types of accounts, because you get some benefits in tax advantaged investing, but you also get some penalties if you decide to take money out early. Each of these different types of accounts has a little bit different rules for eligibility. So you're gonna really, I don't expect you to be an expert on all of these types of accounts, but I would really encourage you to think about the top 3 types of accounts that you're going to want to be understand for your investing career. So number 1, if you work for a corporation, the 401k. The Roth IRA is super important. A lot of 401k plans now will allow you to do a Roth 401k or 401k Roth, which is same thing as a Roth, but with higher limits, and it's a great deal. So you're going to want to get familiar with what that is and what are the rules, boundaries, and limitations around that type of account. You want the whole idea of tax allocation and tax advantaged investing is to take advantage of the IRS code. That's the second law of personal finance, the law of tax advantaged investing. And the IRS makes the law, they make the rules, and our job is to take advantage of them. And that's really what this lesson and this lecture and your assignment this week is all about, is to help you see in your financial plan how that impacts the projected returns of your money. Because when you're making a lot of money, as you get into your career, you're going to make more and more money, and you want to have tax deferred, not just for the tax deduction, which we talked about a little bit when we talked about the 401k, but you also want to have the tax deferred growth. So those investment strategies we talked about last week, diversification, asset allocation, dollar cost averaging, a very important, one of my favorite strategies, and then portfolio rebalancing, especially those last 2, dollar cost averaging and portfolio rebalancing. If you're doing that in a tax advantaged account, then you're not paying taxes when you sell those winners and buy those losers and rebalance your portfolio. And so trust me, it makes a big difference over your investing lifetime. So those investment strategies really come into play when we're talking about tax advantaged investing. So tax allocation strategies, that's different than asset allocation strategies. And asset allocation strategies, remember, we're talking about allocating your investment assets according to different asset classes. So you mix it up a bit. Remember Farmer Joe who was buying cows? If you're a farmer, you want cows, you want pigs, you want horses, you want hay, alfalfa, soybeans, whatever. That's being diversified so that all of your income isn't coming from one crop or one product, in this case, pigs or cows or chickens. So for you, you don't want all of your portfolio to be in large cap stocks. You don't want it all to be in international stocks. You don't want it to all be in bonds. So that's asset allocation. That's what we did a little bit of last week. And you got to play around with that in your financial plan to see how it moved the needle on your probability of success. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's see. We've also got, we're going to talk about types of accounts. Really, we're going to talk about the 401k a little bit, the IRA a little bit. In fact, let me just do that now. So let me do this. So this should take us to the 401k plan, which we talked about last week. Remember, I call it the perfect investment because if you're working for a company, the company is making a match. I had lunch. No, it wasn't lunch. I just met him at the roller skating rink. One of my dear friends, Adam. Adam has been my friend when he was a little kid. We called him, well, I'm not going to say his last name, but he's a very entrepreneurial young man. And I got to see him catch up. We're going to have coffee next week. But Adam was just telling me where he was in his financial life, and he has done really, really well. Adam is one of the guys that he's got all these ideas, and he over his lifetime, he's come to me and asked me about stuff, and we've had great conversations. And he was the first guy in Friendswood to get a cyber truck. So if you happen to know Adam, you know that about him. What I didn't know about Adam is that he uses Turo, I think it's Turo, to rent out his vehicles, and he buys Teslas and rents them out, and he gets pretty good income doing that on the side. That's his little side hustle. So we're gonna have coffee, and he's gonna teach me how that works because I have some extra vehicles that I might want to use in that way to produce a little revenue. But my point is that Adam's very entrepreneurial, but he has a job, a corporate job, and he's doing very, very well. In that job that Adam has, he has a 401k. So I always ask old students, old friends, I ask, tell me about this and that. What are you doing? How's it working? And dude, this guy, he's doing everything right. Just like I want you to do everything right, especially when it comes to this thing that I consider to be the perfect investment. The 401k, it's a tax-deferred, which means, well, I'll tell you what that means in a minute, but remember the perfect investment. The reason I call it the perfect investment, and there is no such thing really as a perfect investment, but the 401k comes closer than anything because of the match. So Adam was telling me about his company and how much they match and how much he contributes, and he is growing quite a nest egg for a young man by doing this, by doing exactly the same thing that I'm teaching you in this course. He's not just doing the 401k, he's also doing backdoor Roth IRAs because he makes too much money to just contribute straight up to a Roth IRA. So I hope you are all in the same place that Adam is in as you move forward in your career. By the way, Adam went to Texas Tech, so he's not one of us, but he's a great guy. Anyway, go Houston. All right, so the 401k plan, I want to just kind of highlight again the reason it's the perfect investment. Number one is you get that match, but number two is you get a tax deduction. So again, I think I used the example, you work at Shell Oil Company, and they have an 8% match. That may not be true today, but at one point it was true. I believe it was. But anyway, we said you made $100,000 a year, which may seem like a lot of money, but when Adam told me how much money he was making, I was just blown away that a young guy his age is making the kind of money he's making working for a large corporation. So anyway, you work for Shell, you make $100,000 a year. You're able to contribute how much? Well, you're going to learn that this week. You're going to do a little review. Maybe check out ChatGTP or Google and just see what are the contribution limits for a 401k this year. And you'll see what that number is. I don't have it on the top of my head. It changes almost every year. but your 401k allows you to contribute to that type of account. And the 401k is a type of account that gives you a tax deduction, and that's the second big beautiful thing about a 401k. Not only do you get the match, but you get the deduction. But you have to decide on day one when you start that job, how much are you going to contribute to your 401k? And you want to do at least as much as they will match. Adam's doing much more than that. And if you're making, the more money you're making, the more of a benefit you get from the second huge thing about a 401k, and that's the tax deduction. So if you make 100 grand and you know that it matches 8%, that's $8,000 that you get to contribute to your 401k and get it matched by your company, which means you put 8 grand in, they put 8 grand in. At the end of the year, you have $16,000 in your 401k account. That's why it's the perfect investment. But the other thing is you get that tax deduction. So you get to deduct $8,000 because that's how much you contributed to your 401k. So that means the IRS looks at your income and they say, you know what, you didn't make 100,000, you only made 92,000 because you were able to deduct that $8,000. And if you contribute more, like my friend Adam is doing, you get to deduct as much as you contribute to your 401k. That's the second big benefit of a 401k that makes it what I consider to be the perfect investment. Okay, and then the third one is that simply in all tax advantaged accounts like a 401k, in this case, it's a tax deferred account. So let me just jump to the next one. IRA tax deferred. So Adam hasn't worked at just one company since he started working. He's actually worked for 2 companies. So what happens is if you leave a company after a few years, and I would encourage you, never leave a company in the first 3 years because you get vested. Okay, you get vested, which means that match that the company gave you, you don't get to keep that if you only work for the company for 1 year or 2 years. That's a 3-year vesting. So you want to stick around for 3 years. And that's what Adam did. But when he left his first company, it was Coca-Cola, when he left that company, he got to roll over his 401k account into an individual retirement account, IRA. You think that stands for individual retirement account, but technically it stands for individual retirement arrangement. But anyway, the point is that the IRA is tax deferred, just like the 401k. And when you have a 401k and you leave the company, then you get to roll over the money that's in your 401k account into an IRA tax deferred account. So keep those terms in mind. They're 2 different types of accounts, but they're very similar. The beautiful thing about the 401k is you can put a lot of money in it. An IRA, an individual retirement account or arrangement, you have different limits, and that's what you're going to learn this week. Now, the third one that I want to just talk about is really important. So the Roth IRA, let me get here. I think I meant to have this up while I was talking about the perfect investment, but I missed it. So let's talk about the Roth IRA, tax-free investing. Now, tax advantaged is a category. That's what we're talking about, tax advantaged investing. Remember, it's the second law of personal finance. The IRS makes the rules. Your job is to take advantage of them. So one of the things that the IRS did in 1998 is they introduced this thing called a Roth IRA. And it's something I've been doing every year since 1998. So you get to contribute. I'm not going to tell you what the limit is, how much you can contribute. There is a limit because the IRS always limits good things. And that's what you really want to learn. The big idea of tax advantaged investing is learn what are the rules, boundaries, and limitations. And then to take advantage of it, what you do is you put in as much as you can and terms of the contribution limits. So if you can contribute to a Roth IRA, you want to do that. For most people, you want to do that, and you want to put in how much? As much as you can. The limits change pretty much every other year or so. And your job this week is to figure out how much could you contribute to a Roth IRA. So once you start working and making some money, I want you to contribute to your 401k, and I want you to put as much as you can to at least get the match. But then in addition to that, I want you to contribute to a Roth IRA. Remember, a 401k and an IRA, a traditional IRA, is that IRA, traditional IRA, that is a tax deferred. So the 401k and the IRA, traditional IRA, those are both tax deferred. But the beautiful thing about the Roth IRA is it's tax free. So what does that mean? It means a couple of things. Number one, a Roth IRA does not give you a deduction. Remember the 401k, you get that big tax deduction, and you get that if you invested in a traditional tax deductible IRA. You get a deduction, a tax deduction, which means your income goes down and you pay less tax, and that's good if you make a lot of money. But the Roth IRA doesn't give you that benefit. Instead, because you're using after-tax funds to contribute to your Roth IRA, instead you get to have money in an account that grows tax-free. So what that means is when you get to be my age or older, you have to be 59 and a half, not 69, 59 and a half in order to take money out of most of these accounts without getting a penalty. 59 and a half. So by the time you get to be 59 and a half, if you decide to take money out of your Roth IRA, you pay no tax on the growth. So imagine if you started in 1998 and you bought Apple stock every year, if that's the only thing you bought. I did a post not long ago where I showed how much money you would have in your account if you invested in Apple stock starting in 1998. And it's really fantastic. I'm not going to talk about that today, but you can imagine if you want to think about what's the benefit of a Roth IRA. I want you to just think about something like an Apple stock. And I never would encourage you to invest in one stock in your Roth IRA, but just for an example, if you did that, the money that the growth in Apple stock and the number of times that it did a reverse split where they took one share and lowered the price and gave you 7 shares. They've done that like 7 times, I think, over the years. But at any rate, if you did the math, and I did the math with a little help from ChatGTP, because I wanted to see what would that account look like, and it was unbelievable. So the Roth IRA, just think of it this way. If you did invest in Apple stock, when you took the money out when you're my age, you're paying no tax on the growth. Think about that. And so the difference between the Roth IRA and the 401k or the tax deductible IRA, when you take money out of those accounts, when you get to be my age or older, what happens is then you have income. So you take the money out and it's just like having income. And what do you do with income? You pay income taxes, which is typically a good thing because you're paying those income taxes when you're later on in life. You're taking the money out of those funds to live on, out of those accounts to live on when you're not earning a lot of money. So in that case, you're in a lower tax bracket. So that's how it works. When you're in a higher tax bracket and you're investing in a 401k, you're getting the tax deduction because you're making a lot of money, and that's a good thing. And then when you get older and you're making less money, you take money out and you're paying a lower income tax. You're in a lower income tax bracket. So that's what it's all about. Don't forget taxes and penalties. I have so many people come to me over my lifetime and have a financial situation where they need money and they go and tap into either their 401k or their IRA. And that is the worst thing you can do. I would rather see you put it on a credit card. Honestly, it sounds crazy, but it's true. It's like the worst thing you can do. If there's absolutely any other way to come up with the money besides taking it out of your deferred accounts, your tax advantaged accounts, you're better off getting the money anywhere. A home equity loan, or, you know, just trust me, you want to put this money in these accounts and leave it there until you get old enough to take it out without penalties. So you're going to learn this week a little bit about the rules, boundaries, and limitations for these types of accounts. Okay. So again, eligibility rules. Each type of account is a little different. It looks like I'm on the wrong. Hold on, let me see if I can. Nope. Okay, there we go. Eligibility, well, maybe I have the wrong screen there, but at any rate, let me see if I can go to plan eligibility rules. Every type of account is a little bit different. Like, for example, my wife isn't currently working, and the 401k let me get this back where it needs to be. It's not working. There we go. So I mentioned Adam. Let's talk about Roth IRA for a minute, just to give you kind of an idea and help you get your head wrapped around the big idea of eligibility on these types of accounts. So on a Roth IRA, that's the one you really want to be investing in if you can. The 401k is pretty straightforward, but if you want to contribute to a Roth IRA, you have limitations for how much money you can make. So if you make $1 million a year, you make too much money to be able to contribute to a Roth IRA. So that's one of the rules, boundaries, limitations. There is another way to do that. It's called a backdoor Roth IRA, which I mentioned. Adam is doing that, and that's a kind of a workaround, and it's a great way to get money into a tax-free account. I'm not going to go into that today, but just so you know, that is available. There's certain age requirements, and some accounts employment status, like you can't contribute to a 401k if you're not working for that company. And instead of employment status, I would say, like for a Roth IRA, you have to have earned income. So you either have to have earned income or you have to be the spouse of someone who has earned income. So my wife is a retired teacher. I continue to contribute to my Roth IRA. I'm not retired. And to her Roth IRA, because even though she's retired, she qualifies to be able to contribute to a Roth IRA because I have earned income. So that's one of the rules, boundaries, and limitations. So employment status, you could think of that as earned income. That's a big key thing in these types of accounts, these tax advantage types of accounts. You have to have earned income typically. And again, spousal contribution, my wife qualifies because I have earned income. And there are some special cases for eligibility rules, but we're not going to get into those today. So that's that. Let me see. I think I have tax penalties. I did talk a little bit about tax penalties, early withdrawals. The bottom line is, if you take money out of your IRA early, like if it's 401k IRA, if you just take money out early, like when you're 30 because you have a financial hiccup, if you do that, let me see if I can get here. If you take money out early, you pay a 10% penalty. It's a penalty. It's not just tax, but you pay a 10% penalty plus you pay taxes. So, for example, if you take 20 grand out of your 401k, you're going to pay $2,000 just in penalties. And if you happen to be making a decent income, it's like you earned $20,000 more. So it's a huge cost. It's the reason I say it's the last place you want to try to get money. There are some exceptions to those penalties. But again, I'm not going to get into those today, and you don't need to worry about them either. Just so you know, there are some exceptions, and if you're interested in that, you're welcome to do a little more research. There is some content for you to get familiar with these in Money Study Group, but mostly in your assignment this week, you're going to just do a little research and figure it out. It's easy to do these days to figure out what are the rules, boundaries, and limitations for each type of account. I would go to ChatGTP to start with. You could go to Google. You could ask Siri, but I'm trying to say that quietly because it activates all my devices if I say her name. And the truth is, she is probably the least among all AI agents. Like, really lame. I'm so done with her. I'm not going to say her name. You know why. Okay, so here's another little piece of information you want to know. It's called minimum distribution requirements. And so, again, if you contribute to a 401k, it will generally almost always end up as an IRA. So, when you finally retire, you're going to roll that 401k over into an IRA somewhere like Charles Schwab or Fidelity or E-Trade, wherever you want it to be. And if you're working with an advisor, I work with Charles Schwab, so all of my clients, their money is at Charles Schwab for the most part. And my point is, it goes from a 401k into an IRA, and that is where generally the IRS, they require you to take a minimum amount out of your account. So by the time you get to be 70 and a half, you have to take money out of your account. You can't just let it sit there and grow in a tax-deferred way. Now, that's a big thing for most people because they don't want to pay the taxes. They want it to grow. They want it to go into their estate and, pass it down to their loved ones. But you can't do that with all of it. You have to take minimum required distributions. However, you don't have to do that for Roth IRA. So it's another big benefit of making sure you put some money, allocate some money to a Roth IRA. It's not just tax-free, but there are no minimum required distributions. So there are tax implications on everything you do in these plans, and so that is obviously planning to avoid penalties. I don't remember what I was going to say about planning to avoid penalties, except that if you don't have a plan and you get in a financial pickle, don't make your plan the default of going to one of your tax deferred accounts or tax qualified or tax advantaged accounts. Don't make that your plan. It's like when we started out this semester, we talked about emergency funds. And if you don't have an emergency fund, that's a problem because everything could be an emergency if you don't have an emergency fund. Small things can become real big emergencies financially. But if you have money set aside, then an emergency, it's not really an emergency. It's just something that happens that requires you to dip into your emergency fund. But if you have no emergency fund and you have a hiccup, let's say you get laid off for 3 months, or you get sick and you can't work for 6 months, you have hospital bills, whatever it is, and then you don't have a plan because you didn't put aside money for your emergency fund. Now, what are you going to do? What most people do, the first thing they think of is, hey, I got all this money in my 401k or my IRA. I'll just go borrow it, take it from there. But the problem is, it's bad. It's the worst thing you can do. It's the most expensive way to get money because of the penalties and the taxes. So when I say planning to avoid penalties, I think I remembered what I was supposed to say here, and that is have a plan. Don't make that your plan. Okay, so I think we're moving right along. Let me just see what we have here. I'm going to go to the next. That's the wrong one. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, that's it. Wrong asset classes. That's the wrong one. So let me just go ahead and jump over here, and I'm going to show you. Let me get rid of this. And let me go ahead and put that there. Sorry about that. I'm playing with my buttons again, which I do occasionally. I push these buttons and you get to see everything in the studio here. But anyway, back to my iPad. Now I'm looking at my iPad, and this is the post. Again, I mentioned this at the beginning of this live stream. If you want to see what I'm looking at right now, there's a link right in the description of the video, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, my favorite social network. By the way, look, we're getting to the end of our semester, and I always try to mention that it is my privilege to connect with you on LinkedIn if you're in my course. I have thousands, probably around 13,000 connections on LinkedIn, which is pretty remarkable to me. I mean, I'm just me. Most of those folks are either students or financial professionals, lots and lots of business owners too. But anyway, I like LinkedIn. It's the only place I really spend any time in social, mostly. But anyway, all that to say, I hope that if you're in this course, that you've taken the opportunity to connect with me. I would love to be connected with you. You're going to have questions down the road at some point, and you're going to want to ask someone you trust, and I will be happy and honored to be the person you reach out to if that ever comes up. A lot of students reach out to me when they start working and they ask me, I know I'm supposed to know this, but day one, when I start the job, the 401k will help me out, remind me. And I'm happy to do that. But it's really pretty simple. When you start that job, you want to know, yes, I'm going to contribute to my 401k. And it's pretty simple then to know how much. That's the next step. How much are you going to contribute? And if you know how much your company matches, then you know how much you're going to contribute. You just do quick math. I'm going to make this much money per year. And if they're matching 6%, then I'm just going to figure out what is 6% of how much I'm going to make. I'm going to divide that into my number of paychecks for the year. And that's how much I'm going to contribute to my 401k. At least. You can do more. I would encourage you to do more if you can. But instead of doing more in your 401k, maybe you want to turn around and contribute more to your Roth IRA. And probably you'll be able to do that right in your 401k. So if you need help figuring that out when you start, I'm available and I'm happy to help. But the main point again is just do it. Do it. And then the third thing is that people ask me about, students who come to me years later or months later, is how am I going to invest it? How am I going to invest in my 401k? And that boils down to what are your options. But if you have, usually you have pretty decent options. Some plans have much better options than other plans, but you can only, you got what you got. Whatever your options are in that plan, that's what you have to use. And you want to basically use good asset allocation, large cap U.S. stocks, small cap U.S. stocks, mid cap U.S. stocks, international stocks, bonds. So there's a, again, it depends on what options you have. But those asset classes, the main ones I just mentioned, are going to be available in all plans for sure. Because for that plan to get qualified, it's got to have a good roster of investments for you. So anyway, that is what you'll do next. In your plan this week, you're going to be setting up some accounts. You're going to make sure you have a Roth IRA, a 401k, and a tax-deductible IRA. So those three types of accounts, and that's in your instructions, and that's what you'll see when you go into your assignment this week. You're going to learn about these different types of accounts, and you're going to actually be setting that up in your account. So let's see what else. I'm not going to go all the way through the assignment. That's all there in Canvas for you to do. What I am going to do at this point, though, is I want to talk about tutorials. So let me do this. About this time in the semester, every semester, I start getting questions because we're getting closer to the capstone. And again, I mentioned the capstone many times in the past, but we're getting close. We have assignment number 11, and then, wow, we have 11, 12, and then the capstone. Wow, it's hard to believe we're so close to the end of the semester, but we are. And I have an announcement. Before I get into this week's class collaboration, which I'm going to get into, I'll just tell you right now, heads up, I'll mention this again, but this week's class collaboration is how do I get a tutorial? How do I get Professor Munchback to help me answer questions in my Right Capital financial plan? How do I get his input and his help? That's what this tutorial, how to get a tutorial, that's this week's class collaboration. I want you to tell me in a comment. I want you to post it, take a screenshot, and explain how do I get Professor Munchback's help. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to make this quick announcement. I am working on taking a sabbatical. So this is the spring session of 2025, and there will be no spring. I will not be teaching in the spring of 2026 because I'm going to take a sabbatical. I haven't totally got it approved yet, but because I'm an adjunct, I'm sure I can. And here's why I'm going to take a sabbatical, and here's what it means to you. And here's something I'm going to ask you to consider. For me, I'm taking a sabbatical because the Bauer College of Business has decided that online courses are not the mode they want to go in the future. And so we're trying, the Bauer College and our leadership is trying to get everybody back on campus, which I think is a great thing. No question in my mind that face-to-face instruction is better than what we're doing right now. However, the reason I'm doing this asynchronous online teaching is because when COVID hit, we didn't have a choice. And everyone who taught at the University of Houston was required to develop an online course overnight. And believe me, that was a very ugly process for a lot of very old professors who had no clue about how to use technology. Trust me, it was ugly for many, and it was clumsy for most. And it was difficult for everyone, including me. What I did was I started to research and invest in the best technology possible to create the absolute best online delivery system I could do. And I think I did. I mean, I'm not saying I did a great job or did everything perfectly or even right, but I promise you, I did enough research to figure out what the best tools and technology were that were available, and they were not cheap. And that's what I did. I invested in them, I learned how to use them, and I became good at using the tools that I needed to learn how to use to develop and distribute an online course that worked. And this course has been highly acclaimed by students who've gone through it and staff who have taken a look at it and so on. And I'm thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. However, going back in the classroom kind of it eliminates a lot of the benefits that I have using the tools and technology I'm using now. And I'm not sure I'm not sure that's what is the right thing for me to do. Now, when we finish COVID, at the end of COVID, and I'm still in my announcement, I'm going to get to the tutorial in just a minute. But I just want you to know that I'm taking some time off to rethink about my future as a professor at the University of Houston. And so I wanted to share that with you. And so this is my last spring. I won't be doing it next year because I'm going to take a sabbatical. Now, when we had COVID hit, we had to do this online thing overnight. I did it. I dived right in. I got to where it was pretty effective. And then we tried to get everybody back on campus. And so I came back on campus and started teaching on campus. And when I did that, that semester was like a test drive for me. And I sat in class, I had 100 students, and I gave them the choice. Come to class, or you can watch the live stream. So I would live stream while I was in class, and what happened was, and the whole point of that semester for me was I wanted to give my students an option. I wanted to give them the opportunity to vote, and they voted with their booties, which meant the classroom was empty. There were no butts in the seat. There were no faces there. I was teaching to an empty room, not empty, but 2, 3, 4, 5 students out of 100 would show up. And I got the message loud and clear that my students, the students who I engaged with, at least during that semester, were voting for asynchronous, online, on-demand courses. Many colleges do that, and that's a preferred way to do courses for some students. I don't know about you, so I want you to share that with me, either in a text message, email, a comment, screenshot. You can post that in Money Study Group or in the comments to this video. I'm just curious, how do you feel about that? Frankly, I'm just not all that excited about traffic, and I'm not all that excited about parking on campus, and I'm not all that excited about sitting in a classroom with students who would rather be somewhere else. I'm just not sure that that's the right thing for me. Although I have no doubt that in-person instruction is better. This course is a little different. We use a lot of technology. We're working on the financial plan. You're using right capital. So what's the right answer? I don't know. But I promised my leadership I would think about coming back on campus. And I am thinking about that because I love teaching. And this course means, well, it means a lot to me to be able to take what I've learned over my career and over my investing life as a certified financial planner and give it to you and teach you. That's one of the highlights of my professional or personal life, really, and I'm grateful to be here, but I'm just not sure about the next chapter. So I wanted you to know that. Okay, back to, so I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'm going to take a whole year and think about it, and I'm going to be asking a lot of students to share their perspective as I think about it. So please, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, let's get connected and leave a comment in this video. Just, you have my text, you have my mobile number, so text me if you want to just share your thoughts on that. I know I asked you earlier in the semester about your preference for online courses versus in person, and I appreciated your input, but I want to give you another chance to just kind of give me some feedback and help me make my big life decision. Okay, now to the capstone tutorial, and this will be we'll wrap it up here. So every semester we use some type of tool. This semester we're using GroupMe, which is number one. The number one survey response is GroupMe. Students like GroupMe. It's a way for you to ask common questions. Typically, most of those questions have been covered in the Zoom meetings and the weekly live streams. But maybe you missed it, maybe you weren't paying attention, maybe you were watching me on double speed, which is what I would do if I were watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, X. I would hit the double time and watch my professor as quickly as I can, because I know you can listen a lot faster than I can talk. But regardless, you have a question, it's not a question that is appropriate for you to text to your professor, but it's totally appropriate for you to ask your cohort. And so that's why we have GroupMe, for you to ask those questions that are common questions. I do not monitor the GroupMe. I set it up for you, and then I ask you at the beginning of the semester to let me know. Text me, email me, call me, whatever, if you have a question that's not getting answered in GroupMe. But every semester, over and over, I get questions from students who clearly are not watching the live streams, and they're waiting till the last minute to do their assignment, and then texting me at 1 o'clock in the morning asking for help. And I'm not willing to do that. So what I am willing to do, what I do want to do, you guys sometimes have some great questions that go a little deeper than what you're going to get from GroupMe. So in those cases, if you have questions and you've been working on your financial plan and you're not sure how to get the needle to move, or why you have such a massive number for your debt strategies when you did your credit crush, and you have these questions that you're thinking may impact your capstone score, I want to help you, and I'm happy to help you. But this is what you're required to do if you want my help. And it's basically pretty simple. And this is what I want. This is this week's class collaboration. It's a secret, so don't tell anybody. Just give me your answers and take a screenshot and tell me, how can you get Professor Munchback to give you all the answers to help you fix your financial plan? I will do that, but here's what I want from you. I want you to send me an email, not a text message. You can text me to make sure I got the email if you want. Text is the quickest, easiest way to get my attention. But I need an email from you with, just like, think of it as an extra assignment for you. I want you to put together a PDF document that says, here's my questions, here's what I'm working on. Next, I want to see screenshots of your plan. Show me the problem you're having. Give me a screenshot. And then show me, what have you done to try to figure that out? Where have you looked? What have you checked? And then just give me your questions. I'm trying to get my probability of success to go from 0 to something more, and I can't figure out how to do that. Or whatever your question is, just give me the screenshots. Tell me your question. Tell me what you've done to try to figure it out. And then finally, this is important, give me permission to use your plan and to do a tutorial. I'll do a tutorial video using your plan with your questions, and we will let the cohort have access to that tutorial so that other students who have the same question you have, or the same questions you have, get the benefit of me answering that question. So that's the deal. I'm happy to give you a tutorial and answer all your questions. But that's what I want from you in return. I want your permission to use that to share with other students who may have the same question. And if that's not cool, if you don't want to do that, no problem. But frankly, I'm not going to do your homework for you. But I will be happy to do tutorials for you, because that benefits the entire course, the cohort, and I want to do that. So that's the protocol. So don't send me, please, don't send me questions that you haven't run through GroupMe. And if you run it through GroupMe and you're not sure, like if you're not getting answers because nobody's responding, that's one thing. That may mean you have a really dumb question that you should have figured out. I wouldn't answer dumb questions, and I get some dumb questions. Mostly, though, if you ask a question in GroupMe and it's not a dumb question, it's a good question, and students in GroupMe say, hey, that's a good question, or I don't know the answer, I don't know, I had the same problem. If you get that response in GroupMe, please let me know, and I will jump in and get you an answer, and I'll give it to you so you can share it with GroupMe. In GroupMe. So that's kind of the protocol. So far it's worked. Over the years it's worked pretty well. If it's not working, please let me know, but that's how it works. And that's this week's secret class collaboration question, is how can you get Professor Munchback to answer your questions and give you all the answers you need to get 200 points on your capstone assignment. It's called a capstone tutorial. And I'll go through your plan, and I will make sure that you get all of your questions answered. All I ask in return is that you let me share that with the cohort so that other students who have the same question can get their questions answered. And if it's a super easy question, it'll be a very short tutorial, but I'll share it right here on the weekly Zoom meeting. I'll send it to you so you can get it as soon as it's done, but then I'll probably run it on the next week's live stream. So or maybe I'll just post it in the playlist. That's what I'll do. I'll post it in the playlist, and then I'll mention that I did that in the next live stream. So that's going to do it for today. I hope you have a great April Fool's Day. Go Houston. Looking forward to the game. And that's going to do it. So I'm going to end now, and I look forward to seeing your assignments. And next week, I'll review some, kind of wrap things up in the semester as far as points, how many points you need to get what grade. I'll go over that. Most of you are doing great. A few of you are a little behind, but most of you have taken advantage of the early assignments, and that's starting to pay off big time. So I'll see you next week, and I'll see you in the comments in your Canvas assignments as we get those done. Have a great day. Have a great week. Go Houston. See you later.